You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in
Should
this.
the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would. I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so, it's always, I don't know, transhumanism.
That repulsive, moist little freak is Peter Thiel, the right-wing, anti-democracy, anti-human billionaire who's currently profiting off of internet censorship around the world. And we're going to come back to that guy in a moment, but first, I want to talk about internet censorship because what's happening is truly alarming, and it feels like a gross oversimplification to just describe it as internet censorship, because we really are witnessing draconian changes to the internet that are so transformative that the internet could look like an entirely different place within just a couple of years if we continue on this trajectory. So I'm talking about age verification laws, which require users to input a credit card, government-issued ID, or biometric data into certain websites in order to access said websites, namely pornographic websites or other websites that contain harmful content promoting self-harm or eating disorders, for example. But the question is, what if we're talking about a social media website like Reddit or Twitter that allows users to post porn, but it's not necessarily a pornographic website? Do those sites get designated as porn sites? Furthermore, who gets to define what is and isn't harmful? We can all agree that websites encouraging self-harm are dangerous, obviously, but what about websites that offer resources to LGBTQ+ youth? You and I would probably agree that that's necessary since LGBTQ+ youth are at risk and they need resources, but Republicans would argue that that's promoting a dangerous lifestyle to minors. Therefore, it should also be banned. And therein lies the problem with these age verification laws. The goal ostensibly is to minimize harm to children, but it could potentially do the opposite depending on how it's enforced. Not to mention, as the Electronic Frontier Foundation argues, these laws raise a ton of privacy and security concerns since age verification goes through third-party platforms like Yotai and Persona, which stores personal information that can easily be exploited or sold to data brokers or given to law enforcement. On top of that, since these laws tend to be vaguely worded, they create environments where companies feel inclined to over-censor in order to avoid fines for non-compliance. And as hard as it is to believe, millions of people simply don't have government IDs or smartphones that they can use to verify their biometric data, meaning that they're just going to be restricted from accessing content that they are legally allowed to see. And I'm sorry, but if you're an adult, you shouldn't have to put in your ID to jerk off. It's called freedom, and the government doesn't need to be involved this intimately in our personal lives. Now, another issue is that these age verification checks can easily be bypassed using a VPN, which tech-savvy children also have access to, by the way. But if people can't afford a good VPN and they end up downloading some free, unsecure, shitty VPN, well, that could open them up to even more security risks and possibly open them up to spyware or viruses. So age verification laws, they simply create more problems than the one that they're trying to solve. Nevertheless, it hasn't stopped governments from adopting them. And I don't think that people truly grasp the sheer scale of this global effort. According to the Free Speech Coalition Action Center, 25 U.S. states now have age verification laws that are either currently in effect or scheduled to go into effect by the end of September. All of these laws, mind you, only started to take effect in 2023 at the earliest, so this is a relatively new trend, and back in May, Senator Mike Lee, a Republican, introduced legislation to roll out age verification to all 50 states. Also, there's Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell's children's online safety legislation that passed the Senate at the end of July, and it doesn't go as far as Lee's bill, but it does establish a, quote, duty of care for websites by requiring them to activate the most protective settings for kids by default, which could lead to websites taking a play it safe approach and going gung-ho on the censorship. And you may be thinking, well, at least we have the First Amendment to protect us from government overreach, and I'm sure that as soon as these laws make it to the courts, they're going to get struck down, right? Well, unfortunately, the Supreme Court actually did weigh in on this, and they upheld an age verification law in Texas in defiance of past precedent. So they've given Republicans and Democrats the green light to do this in all 50 states. But you'd be mistaken to think that this was just an American problem, because it is not. An age verification law just went into effect in the UK. A similar law will go into effect in Australia soon. The European Commission has created a blueprint for age verification for all member states. An age verification bill was recently reintroduced in the Canadian Senate. Corporations are also jumping on the trend. YouTube just announced plans to use AI to determine whether or not users are 18 based on videos that they've watched. But don't worry, if they mistake you for a child because you consume too much anime or Fortnite content, you can verify your age by submitting a credit card or government-issued ID. Even video games aren't safe, seeing as how Rockstar may soon be rolling out age verification in certain regions to GTA Online, and the jury's still out on whether or not it'll affect GTA 6. So like it or not, age verification is quickly becoming a norm on the internet across the globe, and at this point it's becoming so common that websites might feel forced to jump on the trend ahead of legislators if they think that it's inevitable anyway. Now, I think that that's why YouTube and Rockstar are probably doing this. Other companies are doing this as well, to be clear. But unsurprisingly, it's already been a complete disaster where it's been rolled out. For example, in the UK, as journalist Taylor Lorenz explains, entire forums, websites, communities, and essential journalism is being censored. People are being forced to scan their faces to use Spotify, and YouTube is guessing ages and asking users for government IDs. Subreddits dedicated to covering war crimes in Ukraine and Gaza or crucial information on sex ed now requires age verification. Users on Reddit are reporting entire subreddits are being blocked across the UK. A post on one tech support subreddit shows the message, "Due to local laws, we are temporarily restricting access to this content until X estimates your age." A post on UK politics reads, "If you have a standard X account in the UK, presumably the vast majority of British users, you cannot see any protest footage that contains any violence tonight because of the Online Safety Act." Reddit has also blocked access to a slew of subreddits featuring crucial public health related information like R periods, R stop smoking, R stop drinking. Other subreddits that provide essential community support to users, including minors like sexual assault, for example, are also blocked. Young people cannot access any information about sexual assault or potential abuse under these new child safety laws, meaning that they are less able to identify abuse and more likely to be exploited. So needless to say, it's led to unprecedented levels of censorship and stopped youth from accessing content that reduces harm, which begs the question, if these laws don't accomplish what they set out to accomplish and it just creates a massive headache for everyone else, why even bother? And Occam's razor would tell us that it's because governments want to be able to control what content citizens see, including democracies, hence why conservative organizations such as the Heritage Foundation, the publishers of Project 2025, have promoted age verification. But let's be real, it's also about money, which brings us back to Peter Thiel. As the Byline Times reports, the third-party age verification companies used by leading social media platforms include a firm tied to Trump-supporting billionaire Peter Thiel and another firm set up by former Israeli intelligence officers. And once they profit off of the collection of our information, they get to do whatever the fuck they want with our information, since there's virtually no oversight over these companies who are collecting and storing our private information at the behest of these governments. And if you think it's weird how these age verification laws seemingly came out of nowhere all of a sudden, I promise you it's not a coincidence. And I think that comedian Big Money Salvia put it best in his recent episode of Internet Comment Etiquette.
If you use Persona to verify your age before you watch some porn, that information belongs to Peter Thiel now, whose founders fund is one of the largest investors in the company. When your kids take photos of themselves so they can use voice chat in Roblox, Roblox uses Persona as well. So Peter Thiel's got photos of your kids, dude. Hey, do you want to see footage on Reddit of the genocide in Gaza? Well, Reddit uses Persona for age verification. So Peter Thiel now knows that you're a little troublemaker, and you're going to be classified as such in his Foundry system, and then the next Waymo you take is going to go off a fucking bridge. I'm just saying, it's all Peter Thiel, who wants to create a police state so that democracy doesn't get in the way of his stupid fucking mission to live forever or whatever. And the only way to get there is to create infrastructure that tracks everybody's movements online so that you can infinitely control them. That's what all of this is about. And you can blame Peter Thiel.
He's not wrong. Peter Thiel's companies, like Musk's, have huge government contracts, but since he's not as present and visible as Musk, he tends to kind of slide under everyone's radar. But nobody should feel good about the prospect of this individual having all of our data, because it gives this sociopath a tremendous amount of power over us. And former Labor Secretary Robert Reich sounded the alarm about his Palanteer company back in a June op-ed for The Guardian, where he explains, in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, a Palanteer is a seeing stone that can be used to distort truth and present selective visions of reality. During the War of the Ring, a Palanteer falls under the control of Sauron, who uses it to manipulate and deceive. Palanteer Technologies bears a striking similarity. It sells an AI-based platform that allows its users, among them military and law enforcement agencies, to analyze personal data, including social media profiles, personal information, and physical characteristics. These are used to identify and surveil individuals. In March, Trump signed an executive order requiring all agencies and departments of the federal government to share data on Americans. To get the job done, Trump chose Palanteer Technologies. According to New York Times reporting, Palanteer software may now be used to combine data gleaned from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Social Security Administration, and the Internal Revenue Service. Meanwhile, the administration wants access to citizens and others' bank account numbers and medical claims. Will the Trump regime use an emerging super database to advance Trump's political agenda, find and detain immigrants, and punish critics? Will it make it easier for Trump to spy on and target his ever-growing list of enemies and other Americans? We'll soon find out. Indeed, we will. And I'm not sure who I trust less with all of our information, Trump's government or Peter Thiel's companies, but it is alarming that multiple former Palanteer employees have demanded that the company stop collecting data for Trump because they're afraid that it'll be used to violate people's civil liberties. On top of that, even lawmakers have been kept out of the loop here with regard to what the government is doing with Palanteer, which is why Democrats sent a letter to Palanteer inquiring about the massive government contracts that they got from Trump. Even some Republicans are concerned about Trump's work with Palanteer, which gives you an indication as to how nefarious this could turn out to be, because if evil-ass Republicans worry about the risk that this poses, that kind of goes to show you how bad Peter Thiel's companies are. Keep in mind that J.D. Vance, the vice president currently, he also was mentored by Peter Thiel, so it's not necessarily that surprising to see his companies get these sweetheart deals from this administration, but it's probably also not a coincidence that a policy that benefits his companies is picking up steam across the globe. That should concern every single one of us. To see all of the censorship at once, that is alarming. So in conclusion, don't fall for the lies being told by politicians about these age verification bills. They do not protect children like they say they do, but they are ushering in a new era of internet censorship where anonymity that we all once enjoyed may soon go the way of the dodo, and we have to resist these laws whenever they emerge and wherever they emerge. That is, if it's not already too late.